Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to another video. So for today's card, I started with the All My Heart stencil from Simon Says Stamp, and this stencil is about 4 inches square. So my original plan was to do a 4 1/4 inch square card, just a 1-layer card, which I have here, but even with all of my attempts to not tear the cardstock, I end up tearing it, which I'll show in a minute. But anyway, I'm using just washi tape to tape down the stencil, and I'm going around all the edges of the stencil because I want to make sure I can like blend the ink right up like on all little hearts and not go over the edges. And I also mask off the heart in the center of the stencil because I didn't want any ink there. So I used washi tape for that too. And a lot of times if I don't want things to be as sticky, any tape or anything like that, I will, put it on my hands or put it on my arm first. That just helps kind of remove some of the stick. So I did all that, did all my masking. So now all that's exposed are all those little hearts, which I love. I love that like cluster of little hearts around a heart shape. So I kept it simple and I just used my blending brush and some Rosy Cheeks ink from Simon Says Stamp. Although I was thinking, I was like, ooh, this would look really pretty, like if I'd put some Moonstone glimmer paste like over it. Like I was like, I could layer on everything like a million times, but I was like, no, just the ink. That's the whole plan. So I blended on the ink with one of my Picket Fence blending brushes. And this is where I was not careful enough. As I start peeling off the washi tape, I end up tearing the cardstock on the right hand side there. And I was like, oh. And it's not as obvious on camera, but in real life, like it's very obvious. So I removed the stencil. I still had the heart portion in the center. I was much more careful removing the washi tape from the center. It didn't tear anything, although I'm going to be covering, adding my little critter and all that stuff. But still, I didn't want to tear any more cardstock. So I removed that, and rather than redo this or, try and salvage that torn cardstock, I trimmed it down. So instead of being a 1-layer card, it's going to get matted with some pink cardstock and added to a red card. So it's still fine. So I did all that. And then for my main images, I'm using this little Stinkin' Cute stamp set from Simon. I showed it in a recent haul video. This stamp is actually really old. It came out like 5 years ago or something like that, like years ago. But it's just a cute little mini set, and for whatever reason, I didn't own it. I never had it, so I ordered it because I just thought it was adorable. I like the style of it. This little skunk, I think, is just the cutest little thing. So I'd stamped him onto some Neenah 80-pound cardstock with Simon's Intense Black ink, and then I'm coloring him in with Copic Markers. And very simple coloring again, because it's a skunk, it's black and white. And when I do any sort of black coloring with my Copics, I almost always use my cool grays for it. It's very rare that I'll use any of the other types of grays. I almost never use my actual black Copic marker. If you were to do that with anything, whether it be Copics or watercolors or anything, like if you just did solid black, you lose everything. You lose all the definition, you lose any shape, all that, because it's just going to cover everything up. So I usually will work, depending on the image, I'll use several shades of gray. So here I used, C10, C8, C6, and C4. So that, you still can see some of the definition of this image, even though it's a simple image. But like if I'd colored the whole thing solid black, you wouldn't be able to see his eyes. You wouldn't be able to see his nose, it helps to have several shades if you're interested in getting Copic markers or anything like that. The grays, while they might be considered boring, are definitely some of my most frequently used markers, and ones that I probably had refills for the longest as well. So I did all my coloring. I added R20 for his little cheeks and in his ears. I did my go-to red combo for the hearts, which was R29, 27, 24. And then I added highlights with my white gel pen, but I didn't add anything to the hearts because I plan on adding Crystal Glaze, and Crystal Glaze basically dissolves white gel pen. I assume because the white gel pen is probably water soluble. So I didn't add any highlights to that. I only added it to the little skunk. And then I trimmed these out with scissors because, again, this is an old stamp set. It doesn't have a coordinating die set, so I just fussy cut it out with my scissors. And then the Stinkin' Cute sentiments from that same set, and I heat embossed that onto some red cardstock. So I use my white embossing powder, heat emboss that, and then I'm using Simon's Sentiment Banners wafer dies. So I used one of the banner wafer dies to die cut it, and then to get the little fishtail end, there's the little kind of, I guess you'd call it almost like triangle shape dies in that set. So I used that to die cut that as well. And then to complete the sentiment, there's the scripty your so words in the set that is technically one stamp, but I just snipped them apart so I could stamp them at the same time on 2 lines instead of on 1. So kind of lined that up and used my stamp platform for this because I had a feeling I'd have to stamp it a couple times to get it as intense as I wanted it. And once I had that stamped, I can start adhering everything onto my little card front here. So I'm using my little regular 3D foam squares this time to pop everything up, just to give it all that extra dimension. So I popped the banner up with that. I popped the little skunk on. He's like sitting on top of the banner with those foam squares. And I also used them on the hearts too. So the large one fit a hole, these little tiny foam squares, but those 2 little tiny ones, I basically had to cut it into like quarters to fit. You could adhere those down flat if you wanted, but I wanted to pop them up because once I start with the dimension, you just can't stop. It's just everything needs to go up on the foam tape. So added those as well. And then to adhere this, I used some pink cotton candy cardstock from Simon to kind of mat this, just to give it that little extra something. And to adhere those together, I just used Simon's Craft Tacky glue. So just squeezed a little bit on there. It always, I don't know why, to me on camera, it looks like I'm like using so much, and I don't. Like, you don't want to use too much because you don't want to ooze it out everywhere, and you also don't want to like cause any warping or anything. So I just squeeze a very thin amount onto my cardstock. And then, of course, I need to finish the inside of the card. So I have this uplifting sentiments set and ended up using a couple sentiments. I really liked the You Are Loved one because it kind of went nicely, I think, with the Stinkin cute, like just this type of the font. Plus, I just liked how it was oriented, so it'd go kind of in the lower corner. So I'm going to white heat emboss that on the lower corner of the inside of the card. And then once I have that embossed, there was another sentiment in the set that I just thought was cute. And it says, I heart you. Because it kind of went, you know, with all the hearts that I used on the front. So I melted all that with my heat tool. And then at first I wasn't thinking. I was kind of like thinking ahead and then not thinking. So I stamped the I heart you sentiment just with the clear embossing ink. But I didn't like that because I wanted to stamp some hearts around it with the clear ink. Just get that tone on tone look. So I was like, that's not going to look good. So again, rather than scrap it or try to adhere, you know, and there's another piece of cardstock over it, I just inked up that sentiment again with the black ink and then kind of layered it over top. It didn't have to be perfect. And actually having it offset a bit, it gave it kind of that shadow effect under the sentiment, which is kind of fun. So I did that, and then I just stamped those same 3 little outline hearts from the Stinkin' Cute set with the clear embossing ink, and that finished off the inside of the card. So once I had that done, I adhered my card front here with Simon's Big Mama foam tape. So just giving it a little bit of dimension, nothing too crazy. And this is still a 4 1/4 inch square card in the end. So after I had done that, I added my crystal glaze to those hearts, because that's why I didn't add the white gel pen to those, because it will just literally just dissolve white gel pen. It's the funniest thing when you see it happen. So I added the crystal glaze, and then as a final little touch, I used my Jelly Roll black glaze pen to dot his little eyes, because it just gives it a little extra something. It's not something you can really see on camera and photos, but it gives it a really kind of the depth and that gloss. So I also added it to his nose just to fill it in and make it glossy and just cute. So that finished off today's card. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have a supply list with links to all the supplies used, so you can check that out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!